The best brisket I've ever tasted was at Black's Barbecue in Lockhart, Texas. And today, I'm gonna try to recreate that magical brisket that the Black family has been making for over 90 years. They do things a little differently than most of us in the modern brisket world today, so I'm interested to see if these techniques really work. Now, Barrett Black, the 4th generation pitmaster in the Black's family, actually taught me how to do this. So if you haven't seen that video from last week, don't worry, I'll put a link at the end of this video and in the description. You can watch that one after you're done watching this. All right, so I picked up this brisket from Costco. This is the best quality one that they had. You can see this is USDA Prime. So let's get this open. When I open a brisket, I do it like those little cereal boxes we grew up with. I cut it like an H, and then I can reach in and pull the brisket out. Now that I've got it out of the bag, I'm just gonna use some paper towels to pat it off. I wanna get all over it, both sides, get as much of the purge off. It's not a huge deal if there's some of it left on here. As a matter of fact, the moisture is probably gonna help on our rub to stick, but let's just get a little bit clean. So I'm gonna start now my trimming with the meat side up. So I'm gonna start by trimming the decal fat. I'm just gonna do a light trim to make it aerodynamic. This is one of the things that Barrett really taught to me about, was not over trimming the brisket. They trimmed the way they did 90 years ago, and it was a butcher shop. And so for them, getting the maximum yield was really the secret. You know, we learned about extra fat when we did that pastrami video, when I learned about making pastrami from Joe Carroll in New York City. I mean, maybe there's something to this, right? Now down here at the other end, you see this corner, this is too thin. This is gonna overcook. And so I'm just gonna try to trim this a nice round trim, keeping this aerodynamic and getting rid of that piece that's just gonna overcook. Now you see over here, there's this rough brown stuff here. This is actually from when they cut this up at the meat packing facility, and they use electric saws. And so that actually cooks the meat a little bit. That's why it's this brown color. So I'm just gonna trim this off, trim off this kind of butcher side over here. And then I'm gonna just round out the rest of the top. I'm gonna pull off any excess fat, any meat that's hanging off that is just gonna ruin the finished product. Let's go ahead and flip it over and work with the fat side. Now this is gonna be our presentation side. We're cooking on a stick burner, which means we're gonna be cooking fat side up. I'm gonna pay a little bit more attention here. All right, so I'm gonna start by pulling off this piece, this big piece of meat and fat that's kind of a mohawk sitting here on the back. That's not gonna cook right. If it folds over, it's gonna block the smoke and any flavor from getting into the rest of it. Everything is just about making this aerodynamic. Now I'm not gonna over trim this. I'm gonna leave this extra fat on just like Barrett did. I mean, this is weird for me. Like, I'm used to trimming down to a 1/4 inch fat cap, but Barrett didn't get really aggressive about trimming, so I'm not gonna get really aggressive about trimming. Now, let's flip back over to the meat side, and it's time to put our rub on. Now, to keep it as authentic as possible, I'm using this bottle of Black's Barbecue rub. This is the stuff that I actually picked up down there. Thank you, Barrett, for giving me a couple of bottles of this to use. I'm gonna do the meat side first, because again, we're cooking fat side up, so this is gonna be down. We're cooking on a stick burner, and I'm just gonna get a nice, light, close to even coat as I can over here on the meat side. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now let's flip it over and get a nice even coat. I'm gonna hold this shaker up high. Look at the grains on this stuff, right? Like, I've got super thin and super thick. This is how they did it in the old days. Let's do the sides. All right, this looks good. Smoker's up to temperature. Meet you over at the grill. All right, so this is Boba Fett. He's our Yoder Durango 24 stick burner. He's running right at 225 degrees, the temperature Barrett told me he cooks at, which is not a change for me. Most of my brisket I cook at 225 degrees. So I'm gonna put this on the top rack. I'm gonna put the point towards the firebox so that it's picking up the hot spot here. And then I'm gonna bunch this up together. Remember that it's right now it's loose, it's gonna firm up. So I wanna create that rounded shape now, so that as the smoke comes over this and it firms up, this is gonna be the shape of our brisket when it's done. Let's close it up, and I'm gonna do my best not to peek for a couple hours. All right, we're 2 hours in. Let's take a peek. All right, we got a nice looking brisket here. So I'm gonna spritz with water. Barrett didn't do that, but he's using that 60 or 70-year-old brick and ceramic pit that I imagine probably is better at maintaining moisture than a metal stick burner with 3/8 inch steel. So I'm just gonna keep this a little moist, but for the most part, I think we're gonna leave this alone and let it keep going. All right, we are 6 hours in. We have a good looking brisket. A little bit of a pool here, but nothing to worry about. Look at the color on this thing. All right, this is gonna come off, and this is something I am really not used to, but Barrett Black says this is the way to do it.
My grandfather came up with a technique where we'll actually cook a brisket over multiple days.
Really?
Yes, where we'll trim it, season it, let it rest, and then we'll cook it about 80% done to where it's technically cooked but not real tender.
Okay.
And then we'll chill it in our walk-in refrigerators.
Oh, back in the refrigerator.
Yes.
Okay.
For at least 1 day, 24 hours, 48 hours.
I'm gonna pull it off. We're gonna bring it up to room temperature, and then I'm gonna wrap it and let it sit in the refrigerator for a couple of days like they do. And then I'm gonna come back in a few days and cook it all the way up to probe tender, that 195 or 200 degrees, get even more smoke on it and see if this really is as close to Black's brisket as we could make in our backyard. Hey, welcome back. It's been 3 days since I saw you, and I'm still a little wigged out by this whole idea of cooking a brisket halfway and then finishing it another day. But this has been sitting in the refrigerator just like Barrett told me, and you know, it still looks good. Now, I talked to Barrett, and he said we've already cooked out so much of the water and some of the fat from this that it's going to cook quickly, that at 225, this is going to come up to temperature quick, and we should be in that 200 range and probing tender in about 5 or 6 hours. I don't really know what to expect. I mean, I trust him, but I kind of want to see it. So I'm going to use one of these meter probes just so I can keep track of it and see how fast it really does rise in temperature. But either way, we're gonna monitor it the same way and we're gonna treat it the same way. So let me get this in here. Should take 5 or 6 hours to 225. Let's go get Boba fired up and get this brisket back on the smoker. Nobody puts baby in a corner. All right, we're about 2.5 hours in. It's looking like a brisket. We're still developing bark. The meter app tells me I got another 3 hours to go, which is right spot on to where Barrett said. I don't know that I need to keep spritzing here, but I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to do the Barrett Black style. God, this looks good. All right, we're at 7.5 hours now, well beyond where Barrett said this was going to be. Yeah, we've been probing tender up here for a while, and you can see we're up in that 207. Yeah, it's still tough down here in the point. You can see the point is still only at 180. So let me rotate it. I'm gonna move it down here, and I think, boy, look at this. That is some serious bark. All right. We're gonna see what happens in the next 15 or 20 minutes. Hopefully I can save the whole thing. All right, 8.5 hours, and I'm starting to doubt the meaning of the universe. Hey, we got tender brisket. All right, it's time. Let me grab a cutting board. I am gonna pull this off. We're gonna let it open rest the same way they did at Black's. I'm gonna let it rest for an hour, and then it'll be time to slice and taste. Okay guys, this looked so good, I decided to put on my Black's barbecue apron that I picked up in their merch shop while I was down there. So here's a piece of flat. This is so juicy. All right, I'm gonna take a taste of the flat, the lean piece. I'll tell you, I nailed the flavor. The bark is really, it might even be too much. If there's such a thing as too much bark, it was hard for me to cut through. The bark is chewy, but inside, it's absolutely delicious. All right, you know, don't take my word for it. Nick, you were at Black's, you got to taste his, right? You want to taste this? You want to tell them what you think? All right, set the camera down, come on over.
All right.
All right, guys, this is Nick. All that fancy camera work is Nick.
All right, so
ready?
You got big shoes to fill.
Right, now this is just a flat. We're gonna taste the point two.
All right.
All right,
Cheers.
cheers. Cheers.
Wow.
I don't think it's as tender as Barrett's.
No.
I think I got
But
the
the
flavor.
flavor
there.
is
I got the
on
flavor
point.
there. All right, on point, no, on flat.
Oh.
See what I did there? All right, you ready?
Yeah. Am I ready?
Are you ready? All right.
I've been smelling this all day.
I know. Ready?
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, wow.
Dude, I think I could have Barrett over for dinner.
So when we were in Lockhart, that Black's barbecue was the best I had ever had. That was the best brisket I've ever had. I'm not lying. I think you nailed it.
Yes.
Like,
I think so
seriously,
too.
I'm surprised because like that was like a tall order.
It was. All right. So first of all, the two-stage cook, definitely.
Yeah.
Second of all, I don't think we need to be using 16 mesh black pepper and fancy salt.
You didn't wrap, you didn't boat.
I didn't
This
wrap,
was
I didn't
straight.
boat. This was
You barely
straight all the
spritzed.
way. We're gonna do some more briskets like this. If you didn't see the video where Barrett taught me how to do that, I'm gonna put it right here. And there's another great brisket video, we've already seen that one, where I did battle with me on a Big Green Egg and my friend James on a Kamado Joe. That's a super exciting video. I'm gonna put that one right here. Watch that one and we'll see you next time on
Eat More Vegans.